Information wars. Most people out there are not aware of something called information wars, or even if they could know of it or are not really aware of how it affects them, or to be able to identify it and to identify its purposes and where it's coming from. We are used of the word we're used to the word propaganda. Okay, it is thought that propaganda is when political actors use the medium to spread what some may call falsified informations or half truth in order to force an agenda. So these things are true in the global context. We need to understand that wars are not only fought militarily. Military war is actually the last option. Excuse me. One of the major war weapon is uh, is this one that I'm talking about. This media war, information war, controlling the thoughts of the people, controlling the agenda, and essentially also socially engineering people to think in a certain way so that the perpetrator is able to get access to resources. So you must understand that number one, what people are fighting for in the world is control of resources. And those that seek to control the resources are a few people at the apex of the ladder. And sometimes they fight each other. So they are a multipolar world to understand, which means that they are not globally united. So even though at some point we might have this one united front of the elite, but also at another level they are fragmented and they fight against each other for control of global resources. So you will see there will be the elite that control the United States. Then there are those that control Israel. There's Europeans. There's the Chinese. There's Russians. The South Africans. But you see, when they come to Africa, they become weaker and weaker. But when they are in the West, they are much stronger. And so sometimes there is cracks in those in those geopolitical groupings, such that you will end up getting wars between countries, that is physical wars. But before wars become physical, they are actually let's say they are what, they are first of all information wars. So the point I'm trying to make is that since these people are seeking resources, the same thing, Putin is actually fighting a resource war in Ukraine. You, through information war, will be told that he wants to keep Ukraine in the sphere of influence, in the sphere of Moscow's influence, and he wants to keep NATO forces as further as he can away from Moscow. That is the information that is given to you in this information war. That is his narrative, to understand. Even NATO has got its own narrative, to understand. But in reality, Putin is interested in the resources in the Donbass region, of which after he found out, he littered that place with the Russians. So after the Russians were there, then somehow we are told that the Russians were mistreated there or something like that. Therefore, he comes to become their savior. But as he saves them, he is also getting control of the resources there. Do you understand? The same thing with the Crimea region. There is oil fields found in the ocean, in the territorial waters of Crimea. The other oil fields are in the Ukrainian side. And now that he took Crimea, also possession of those oil fields, and now that he's going to be taking Ukraine, he's also going to what take control of those oil fields as well. I'll make a detailed research and tell you the name of those oil fields. So essentially, that is what he wants in Ukraine. It's nothing about the neo-Nazi government that he wants to remove. No, it's about those resources. Do you understand? So the media, people have got to understand that is a very powerful tool in converting people into certain ideologies, into thinking certain ways. And sometimes it is done so subtly and through various ways, through even companies that are owned by these people that pull the strings in the world. So in the world is pulled by so many different actors, and therefore they use their investments, their companies to push agendas in certain countries. For example, in South Africa, right now, the one I talk about in my other videos, that the operation Dudula is actually Russian sponsored, because Putin wants to push a certain agenda in South Africa. He wants to push a certain way of thinking in South Africa, so that he will do what he wants you to do. So he will make you think that you hate foreigners when you actually don't. But because it will help him in the future to get the resources of South Africa ultimately, and to get the control of South African military. If he can get control of South African government, South African military, and therefore South African resources, he has actually uh, defeated the enemy, of whom to him the enemy is what you here in South Africa call white monopoly capital. But of course, it's not just white people, it's a group of different type of people. So to him, that is his target, to target their wealth in South Africa. And also as a country, South Africa is got that strategic geopolitical location in the world. If you want to control the global supply chain, you Cape Town is a very strategic position. So it is important for him, as he wants to position himself as the next global leader. But you see, the problem with Putin is that he is he's like what's the word? He's like Robert Mugabe. These people that he's a dictator and he's got no respect for human rights. So that is why it is best to be under the orbit of the West than under the orbit of the East, of Russia or China. Because Russians and China, first of all, do not like black people, to understand. And they do not have any regard for human rights. You see, so these people that are very powerful do that, or do these media wars, because they want to control how you think. They want to capture your mind. And indeed, they have captured the people's minds. Because one way or the other, the way that we think is because we're influenced by what we watch, who we listen to, and the products that we consume. They cause us to react in a certain way, or to behave in certain ways. Another thing I was going to talk about is that in South Africa, people like drinking a lot and they like dancing. You think that it's a coincidence? No, it's not. It was actually planned. It was actually planned so that the black people will always be drinking every weekend, getting drunk, and not worrying about the economy. So while the real resources are being siphoned away from them, because they are drinking and they're not getting education. They are undervaluing education, and the education system is valued. Therefore, you cripple their education system. You cripple them such that they do not understand what is going on. Whilst when they are adults, instead of learning more of self-study, they are actually drinking more. You make alcohol more cheaper. You allow shabins. You're gonna say it's a crime to own a shabin, but you're not going to arrest them. To understand what I'm talking about, you're not going to have control over it, thereby letting it the shabin industry to proliferate in the country and therefore causing people to be drunkards. To like alcohol. Give them good music. Look how the music industry is sponsored in South Africa. The black music industry is sponsored like with top class resources more than any other industry, any other music industry in Africa. Do you know the Zulu music, Maskandi, is actually originally a Zimbabwean Ndebele music, but it was never sponsored in Zimbabwe, but it was sponsored in KZN using very expensive equipment. Why was that done? Why was that done? To facilitate for a vibrant black music industry. But in any case, I will leave that one. I was just giving an example. But the real music industry that they targeted in South Africa is the dance music, the house music, the kwaito music, the pop music. If you look at the lyrics and what our artists in South Africa teach, they talk about gangsterism, they talk about killing people, they talk about youth must go to a party, look for a girl and go sleep with that girl. Go again tomorrow to a nightclub, look for another girl, sleep with them. Go again for the third day. Every weekend you must drink. If you are not drinking, there's something wrong with you. If you're not wearing expensive clothes, there's nothing wrong with you. That is why there is this emphasis on very expensive clothing in South Africa. Because that is actually social engineering. And it happens on black people, not on white people. To understand. So these companies or these global thinkers, these think tanks who are very smart and educated, thought that is how they're going to engineer you as a country and as a people. So right now, an average black South African, when they go to school, they don't finish matric. Okay, even if they do, right, when they become an adult or they do whatever course that they do, that is it, just enough to get a job. And what they seek is to have enough money to drink every weekend, wear very smart. If they can have, if the money is very enough, they'll have to steal and be gangsters because the movies and the music that is top class, you know all that money invested in them to make sure that you believe that gangsterism is the right thing and your heroes are gangsters. They're 26 and 28, they're celebrated. That culture, even that jail culture is actually sponsored. You would think that is something from the hood. It's not. It's actually sponsored from outside to influence the mindsets of black people. So you see how a whole race of people can be influenced to behave in a certain way. That's what they did with South Africa, with South Africans. Because why? There's a lot of gold in this country, and there's a lot of diamonds in this country. There's platinum. South Africa is very rich in many minerals. Therefore, if you are a global thinker with the billionaire who wants to take this country's resources, you do not want to educate the locals of that country. You want to cripple them. To understand? Therefore, I was saying in another video that black people like to witchcraft each other. White people witchcraft the whole population. This is actually a work of witchcraft. It's witchcrafting the whole country. You witchcraft the whole country so much that it doesn't even recognize that it is witchcrafted. It thinks that it is what it wants to do. So you see, every time you drink on a weekend and it's way expensive and you want to show off, you think that it is you. You do not know that you have been socially engineered to be like that for a purpose, so that you do not spend time studying and finding out who you are, what resources you have, and how can you grow your own community. Even your own community, you've got no time for it, because even in that community, your heroes are the guys who carry knives and carry guns and sell drugs. Those are the heroes that are made for black people. You see, if you want to take a look at the black kids that grow in the suburbs. They don't speak gangster. They don't do drugs. They are focused on education and stuff like that, because by the circumstances of their rich parents who who afforded them the luxury of having them to grow up in a stable environment, they tend to miss that bullet of the enemy that was meant for an average black child to think in a debased manner of, sex and alcoholism, and revering gangsterism. Understand? So that is actually social engineering. That is how a country is attacked. Don't mind much about the physical war. Now I'm talking about the information war, and also the social engineering that happens through advertising, companies, products, the packaging of products, marketing it to people in such a way, and sponsoring trendsetters and celebrities. In one of the videos I make, I was praying for South Africa, and the Lord began to prophesy to me. He said that steering by hour, the celebrities are going to die. Because God's judgment has come to South Africa. One thing you're going to see in South Africa, and it is started, you're going to see a lot of celebrities dying. A lot of South African celebrities are going to die. That is, I'm prophesying, they're going to die. Why? Why are they going to die? Because now God is restoring South Africa. He's cleaning it. So these celebrities, which you love, you do not know that they are used and paid to socially engineer you to think the way you think, to make you think that I must steal cars. I mean, if you look at the television, one of the biggest shows in television is Uzalo. Or at some point, it was one of the biggest shows. Do you know why it was big? It was because it was teaching black kids that to steal cars is the most glorified thing that you should do. One of their biggest their biggest hero was Mastermind Omangcobo. This is what is fed to our black children, and therefore in the future we are going to be having MPs. So don't be surprised when in the future we're going to have MPs who are corrupt. From that day when they were young, they were watching Hizo. They were watching Uzalo. What do you expect them to be when they're 34, 35 years? I know, because I've lived in black communities in South Africa, I know that it is a norm to celebrate somebody who's a thief, someone who steals from the community. It is a norm to look down upon someone who does good, but yeah, you bar. Do you understand? You say ngubhare because that is how you have been engineered. It was actually planned to make you think that people who do good ngobhare and those who do good is khokho. And this khokho, the way that they appear on TV, there's nothing is khokho-rish about it was khokho, and there's nothing about to do the good thing, to do the right thing. While people do the right thing, teach their kids to do the right thing, they don't teach their kids to be gangsters. So you do understand that then you are defeated as black people. So when you're talking about black consciousness, you need to be observant and cognizant of things like this. These are the pertinent issues that you must be looking at and dealing with first and foremost, and begin to understand yourself that to but in love, when they talk about this reverse colonization, that there's a word that they use for it. I forgot it, so I'm gonna create my own. This reverse colonization that we always talk about. It has got to come with understanding that some of the things that you like, you should stop liking them because they're actually working against you and they've been planted by the enemy. That is why Paul says that I find myself not doing the things that I like, or not the things that I want to do, I'm not supposed to do. And the things that I am supposed to do that I end up doing, I actually don't want to do. It comes after a realization that we have been wired wrongly. It actually takes humility to do that. I mean, on a personal level, it is very humbling and it takes a lot of humility to accept that I've been wrong. I mean, it's another haggle on a national scale to ask the whole country to do that. Therefore, on a national scale, usually people do not act on a national scale through instruction. I cannot tell you through a YouTube video that South Africans stop drinking and watching violent films and music and start reading. No, doesn't work like that. On a personal scale, I can explain these things, and some people will see the light and begin to a personal journey of transformation. But on a wider national scale, this reverse engineering has to be done through the same process it was done to you in the first place, through products, through marketing, through campaigning, through a process, through years and years of investments and re-engineering the mindset of a black person through influencing the media that is around him. So that takes a lot of money, takes a lot of courage, a lot of political will, financial will, and above all things, religious motivation. So hence Jesus is bringing to the forefront his own people that are going to be blessed this season. So some people in the church are told that in this season, this prophetic season we're getting into, God is going to put his children to the forefront. He is not doing so because you just went to church and raised your hands. He's doing so because there is a particular purpose, and that purpose is that he is teaching you and letting you to understand and actually giving you the true black consciousness, that you understand how you have been defeated as a people, how your community around you has been defeated, and therefore how making you the CEO of MTN will be something beneficial for black people. Because what the ANC has done in the past through BEE deals and in these systems of making sure that there is black people in boards, fair enough, it might have benefited those few blacks, but it never addressed the real core issues of a colonized black brain, of which Malema calls it self-hatred. Do you understand? So it only takes a Jesus anointed person to understand that as the CEO of Vodacom, what is actually my duty in making sure I liberate the mindset of black people from this slavery. Because trust me, the CEOs of these big companies, they know very well of how to keep the black mind entrapped, and they trained very well. And the reason why it is them who are chosen, it is because they actually tore that party line, that line of whoever it is that is in control in that situation or in that part of the region. As I told you, that we talk about these uh, these these so-called global global leaders. So this video is too long. I'll make another one because yeah.